Did you know? Samurai Champloo is inspired by cooking. The setting of Samurai Champloo is, obviously, not entirely historically accurate, being a unique fusion of Edo-era Japan and hip-hop. This combination is reflected in the name of the show itself. In an interview, director Shinichiro Watanabe said the word Champloo in Samurai Champloo comes from an Okinawan term chanpuru, which means something mixed. Cooking is essentially the mixing of different ingredients, and that would be a mixture, right? So in Samurai Champloo, I combined two completely different elements, a traditional samurai story and trendy hip-hop music, with the hope that it would be an exciting and interesting story. Beyond constituting an ideal formula for an original series, in the context of Champloo, the purpose of this fusion is twofold. Not only do elements like Mugen's breakdancing fighting style or the Ninouh brothers' graffiti serve as an homage to urban culture, but these anachronisms serve as a highlight to the benefits of learning from other cultures. The point is driven home strongly to Japanese audiences by the mere fact that the show's setting is the Edo period, which was a time when Japan's foreign policies were mostly isolationist. As much as it is about swordplay and fighting technique, Samurai Champloo has a lot to do with the history of Japanese cinema as well. The stark personality differences between Jin and Mugen are a perfect example of the disconnect between the classic era of Japanese filmmaking and Japan's own new wave generation of filmmakers in the latter part of the 20th century. Though the timelines and even the genres of the two often overlapped over the years, these individual approaches to filmmaking, much like Jin and Mugen's approaches to sword fighting, are very different. For example, during the golden age of Japanese cinema with directors such as Yasujiro Ozu and Akira Kurosawa, filmmaking was very structured and formal. Later, filmmakers like Seijun Suzuki and Kihachi Okamoto broke many of these molds to make their films more provocative by using nihilistic themes and apathetic main characters. These films helped provide a catharsis and commentary for a post-World War II Japan whose everyday citizens couldn't identify with the romanticized depictions of samurais and feudal warlords. As put by author and Asian cinema expert Tom Vick, New Wave directors rejected Japan's tradition of polite and well-crafted films which they saw as dwelling in a dream of the mythical past. Despite its avant-garde nature, Champloo holds a number of nods to classical pieces of samurai cinema, especially Kurosawa. In the first episode, Mugen attacks Jin without much of a warning, but due to his honed reflexes, Jin is able to react in time. Though this seems very unfair, the wise old samurai Kanbei Shimada sets up a test very similar to this scenario in Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. In the film, Kanbei calls each prospective candidate indoors individually, with the young Katsuhiro ready to hit them over the head unsuspectingly with a wooden stick as they enter. Kanbei's justification for this is that the true samurai is always prepared to defend himself in any situation, even without prior notice. Of course, Mugen's motivations were not so noble. A more explicit Kurosawa tribute can be seen in the 2 episodes Hellhounds for Hire, when Jin and Mugen act as bodyguards for rival gangster factions. In Kurosawa's Yojimbo, a wandering samurai acts as a bodyguard for each of the 2 opposing factions of criminals running a small town. Neither side knows that the samurai is simultaneously working for the enemy, and the mysterious warrior plays the 2 off each other to his advantage before they systematically wipe each other out. But again, humorously, neither Jin nor Mugen knew that the other was working for each other's rival, and the criminal organizations were brought down largely by coincidence. Some references in Samurai Champloo, however, are less glamorous than others. The inspector known as Manzo the Saw is a parody of Hanzo Itami, a character from a trilogy of films called Hanzo the Razor. The films depict an Edo-era investigator known for his unorthodox approach at foiling corrupt officials and his bizarre sexual rituals, which is suggestedly hinted at via Manzo throughout Champloo for comedic effect. Despite its pseudo-historical context, Samurai Champloo references a number of real people and events. As depicted in the 2-part episode Lullabies of the Lost, tension existed for many years between the Japanese government and the indigenous Ainu, when the Matsumae clan was granted rule over the land around Matsumae, Hokkaido. This political tension eventually resulted in an Edo period conflict known as SHAKUSHAI'N'S revolt, led by an Ainu chieftain named Shakushain, who was killed when the rebellion was ultimately brought to an end. It is strongly implied that Okuru is Ainu, and consequently that Mugen is of Ryukyuan descent. Mugen remarks how similar their 2 cultures seem to be, despite Okuru hailing from the north and Mugen hailing from the south. Modern research suggests that genetically the indigenous people of the far north, such as Hokkaido, and the far south, such as the Ryukyu Islands, are very similar to one another. Incidentally, the Ryukyu kingdom was an independent entity up until the early 1600s, when a part of it was annexed by Japan to form the Satsuna domain. This gives significant symbolic meaning to Mugen's negative views of authority, Nationality. Also in southern Japan is the Shimabara Peninsula, which was the setting for the Shimabara Rebellion circa 1637. Primarily an uprising of peasants, many of whom happened to be Christian, the rebellion led to the persecution of Christians after it was eventually quelled. The pre-existing ban on Christianity was enforced all the more strictly and will continue to be for over 2 centuries. The samurai who smells of sunflowers was undoubtedly sought after by the government for this very reason. But on a more fun note, episode 18 may hold a double whammy reference in form of an eccentric minor character named Uohori. Uohori, aka Uhori of the Ando store, may be a nod to the famous Edo period painter Hiroshige Ando of the Utagawa school, and his overall character design, which is supported by fans based on the Japanese pronunciation of Ando Uohori, gives him an uncanny resemblance to the iconic pop artist Andy Warhol. Thanks for watching. Where did you know anime? The anime trivia resource. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Facebook for all the latest facts and trivia. My name is Ninouh, and if you'd like to hear more from me, subscribe to my channel and check out my show, Anime Editorial. It's been a pleasure, guys. Sayonara minasan, thanks for watching.